this book is easily like the saddest book on the internet. I saw one creator read it who was just so upset and disturbed by this book and just hates it, absolutely hates it for the fact that it exists because it is so sad and disturbing. A lot of other people love the book because it is so sad. But there are lots of trigger warnings for this book. Definitely. I'm not usually like one of those people who's like, you need to check trigger warnings for all these different books, but for this one, absolutely. The summary is basically this group of 4 guys who meet in college, and then they all become friends, and their friendship lasts, many, many years even after college. I would say that the main character is Jude. He is definitely the central focus. Also, this book is hefty. It comes in at 814 pages. Originally, I was not going to read this book just because I know that I don't like to cry. If a book ends up being sad, okay, fine. But why would I torture myself, basically? However, there was a point last year where it was just everything I read was so monotonous. It was the same. Like I went through quite a long period where none of the books I read elicited any kind of reactions, any strong reactions, whether it be positive or exciting or thrilling. And I was just in desperate need to read something that would elicit strong emotions. And I wanted a sad book. So I ended up picking this book up. As far as where I'm at right now, I would say that the trigger warning is for self-harm. And it goes into graphic details. It goes into how to, exactly his practice. And nothing up to this point, while yes, it's disturbing, it is graphic, there's just a lot of little hurts that just keep coming. And it is sad and it does hurt, pull on those heartstrings, but nothing to the point that has like made me cry yet. One thing I can say that at this point, I already feel like we have been on a vast journey. We've already gotten the details of his childhood. We've gotten details of college life. We've gotten details on even after that and what he's doing now. So I already feel like we've been on this epic journey through Jude's life. And it's amazing that we still have over 500 pages to go. That right there, just conceptualizing that, just considering that concept right now, I'm just like, how much more can this book say? I apologize. The cat is going absolutely bonkers. I think that the writing style is very, very interesting. We're kind of sort of on this path, but then we have a lot of like flashbacks jumping to and from different periods in his life. And they're kind of like, and they give you just enough information, but there's still so much more questions that you have about how we got from that point to this point or whatever. So it keeps you wanting to read, to find out more. Like you want to go back to that flashback and flush out the whole story. There's that aspect. Plus we go into great detail of all the supporting characters, like his friends. He will have these scenes or moments with these friends. The cat is crazy. He's absolutely nuts. I would say that the author is doing such an amazing job at doing this like deep psychological study of each of the characters. And there's definitely points in novels where I get really bogged down. We have a lot of just conversations about seemingly mundane things, like how does this add to the plot or the character development. And I would say that nothing really feels wasted, except a kind of point that I'm getting to right now, daunting. And I don't know if that's also just me feeling a bit impatient. I feel like this book is going slower than anticipated. I would say that the reading process kind of slows me down a little bit, but it's all completely worth it. as I was saying, that this book is really a deep psychological study of the characters and Jude himself being like the central focus, because he's had this sordid childhood history that has led him to self-harm. It just seems like he has so many layered issues, and like the way he sees himself, the way he sees the world, the way he sees the people in comparison to himself, like how he receives them, like all these different angles of every situation, his reactions to the people in his life when they do something nice for him, and his like thought process. Certain things make him feel uncomfortable, how he struggles to understand why people are kind to him or love him or just keep him around. Doesn't have like any kind of self-esteem. He thinks that him being there serves them, ultimately serves them somehow. He can't see that they just really like him. We also get all these really subtle signals, for instance, like when a facial expression and how he interprets those facial expressions. You know, subtle stuff, which I know a lot of people can get really bogged down by that kind of stuff and feel much information that we don't need to know, but I think that it really helps this bigger picture of why or how, like what's going on in Jude's head, and I really appreciate that. There is an addictive quality to this book, for sure. As I said, we've already been on this long journey, and there's a lot of hurtful, harmful things. We can infer why Jude has this problem in his adult life because of the things that he's had. And that's usually, you know, that's the point of a story, right? Is to tell Jude's story about why he wants to hurt himself or why he feels the way that he feels about himself, and analyze his life. And I guess we haven't fully flushed out all the details of it. It's already pretty heartbreaking, but I guess we have like 500 more pages of just bad stuff that's supposed to keep happening to Jude. I don't really want to give spoilers, but there's one part, I don't know how I feel about it, if it takes away from the realism, because he has this relationship with a man named Harold, and there's something about what happens in that relationship that makes me feel like that's just kind of setting someone up for something disappointing, maybe. I don't know. It just seems kind of awkward. It just seems like an awkward situation, an awkward thing to happen. So it makes it feel like this is going to hurt him somehow in some way in the future, or it's a plot device to help him kind of face some of these things that he has been hiding in his past, because he's going to have to tell somebody what has happened now, or it's made him start thinking about all these things that he really kind of pushed back in his subconscious so that he didn't have to deal with it. So I don't know if that's the purpose of this scenario, to kind of have a reason for our character to confront these things. There's also kind of another part where I'm just like, does it make it feel unrealistic to have so many bad things happen to a person that it's unrealistic? But then I watch a lot of true crime and like House of Horrors stories, and there are literally people who just live from one traumatic event to the next traumatic event their entire lives. So it is very realistic if you think about it. And a lot of those stories, for example, I would like to know what's happening with the Turpin children. And really, there's only 2 of like the 20 children, I think, that have done interviews, and the one girl, Jordan, who is the whole reason that they got free, is actually filing a lawsuit now, because after coming out of this House of Horrors, the state put them in foster care. And those also ended up being horribly traumatic situations. You know, I'm so proud of Jordan for fighting, but God, how does that happen? How does that happen to one girl? Well, to all of them. How do they go from one horrible situation right into another home that is maybe even worse? They're saying that the things that have happened to them in that situation have been almost even worse than what their parents did. And if you followed that story, it's horrible. It's disgusting. And so, I mean, anyway, I'm hoping to get some more reading done today. I feel like there's a couple other things making me quite a bit impatient to read this. I have a lot of big books that I'm wanting to read this month. Life has just kind of slowed down my reading process. Hogwarts Legacy's come out and I have started playing that game. That's been really fun as well. I don't know if I'm going to meet my goals this month with reading. I also don't want to kind of have to force myself through a book just to finish it in time. All right, I'll catch up with you guys later. Bye. Hey guys, how's it going? I just want to do a quick reading update. I have made it to page 370. That's really nice to have made such progress. Still a lot to go. I will say though, in the last update, I think that I had felt that it really slowed down and I was like, what else is gonna possibly happen? But it has picked up quite a bit, and we just started Jude's roommate and best friend, closest friend of the four of them, is off on a job where he's going to be gone for 6 months. This is the first time they've ever been separated for this long, and this is going to be really hard on Jude. A lot of people have been kind of commenting on the fact that he is 40 and single, kind of making him think about maybe he should seek out companionship or start to date or something. He does meet somebody, and my God, there are like such horrible red flags. That's all I'm gonna say. Ultimately, I really don't want this vlog to be spoilery. There's all this part where he's like, okay, I get to choose my life now. I'm free from, but then we kind of wind up back into a situation where, you know, unfortunately, I will not be getting any reading done this morning. I ended up spending my time this morning, but I gotta go out and start in on some of my yard work or just cleaning up. I'm kind of stuck on this project until I get some more materials. I do need to go do the cleanup portion, clean up outside, so then I can clean up inside next week because we are going to have a visitor for a week. Good morning, it's Monday and I am 420 pages in and I'm at a point where I don't want to put it down. We just had quite a terrible scene. The last chapter was told from Harold's perspective of kind of recalling the aftermath of this scene. I kind of like things from his perspective. I kind of like that we're changing different perspectives. I think it's really interesting because after this thing that just happened to Jude is regressing, and I don't think this gives spoilers. He has kind of like regressed. He is more shut down than he was. And I think that by switching perspectives and telling the story from Harold's perspective, you really get that sense of a disconnect that wasn't there before. The intelligent storytelling method. We're about to get into a chapter which kind of goes back into Jude's past. Unfortunately, it's about 10:30 now and I have got to get some things done. I have some unexpected errands I need to run. So still quite the journey to go, another 400 pages, but it's a good sign that I'm at a point where I don't want to put it down. All right, I will catch up with you later. Bye. Good afternoon. It is coming up on 2:30 in the afternoon. I've not got to read very much at all, actually. I've been so busy. March coming up, as in starting tomorrow, is going to be another very crazy, busy month. We've got 4 birthdays. 4 birthdays. Okay, so they're all spring babies. Our teenagers are turning 14. My youngest is turning 12, and her youngest is turning 9. So yeah, so we've been trying to figure out what we're gonna do for their birthdays. Still have to go birthday shopping. Yeah, and spring break, and I'm assuming I'm not going to get a lot of reading done, so I think I'm only going to be committing to one book for next month. If I read more, excellent. As much as I am loving it, sometimes I feel like I have to like mentally get there to want to open this book, and not even necessarily like it's hard. I decided to watch Paperback Dreams vlog of her reading experience with it, and now I'm starting to wonder if I'm just not completely cold-hearted. I have yet to cry in this book. I think my last reading experience, I got the little tingle, the little prick in the back of my eye that was like, oh, that's really messed up. In her vlog, page 221, she had to take a break and cry it out. So I had to go back, and I was like, well, how come I didn't cry at that moment? And so I did go back and see what was happening on that page. It's when Jude is talking to his doctor and friend Andy, and I guess, just kind of exclaiming how ashamed he is, how gross, and just how much he hates himself, all his self-loathing. And there's a lot of that throughout this book. I think I'm fully prepared. I'm ready to get into this book. I have about an hour and a half until the kids come home, so let's get some reading in. I wanted to kind of briefly go over the things I'm kind of annotating. I always love to know what people's annotations are, what they look like. For this book, I'm just using a simple black pen and a zebra mild liner in light gray. I just like to keep it simple, and I want it to match the cover. I've noticed that the things that I have been annotating are traumatic things, sad things, his own universe in which he might spend years, decades, his life searching, bumbling for a way out that didn't exist and had never existed. So that's like the hopelessness that he feels. Oh, this page got marked up quite a lot. Oh, so this is all about Malcolm and some kind of messed up stuff that happened to him. Sometimes I like fully block out, and then sometimes I just underline it at the bottom. I don't think that there's any specific reason as to why. It's just kind of what I feel like in the moment. Like how he sees himself in the world, how he's comparing himself to his friends, and for him it's not a very positive outlook. I know that this is kind of centered around Jude and the horrible things that happened to Jude, while his story is the most traumatic. None of these boys have, the best stories. Like, they all have their own personal struggles. I didn't really use any tabs. I've only tabbed these parts because they're the beginning of a whole section, but I haven't really been using tabs at all, except one down here. I forget why I tabbed that. Not everything that I was keeping track of are just the trauma. Like, this one is just him being like, no one's gonna try to hurt him or make him do anything that he didn't want to do. At this point in the story, I feel like you don't really know what happened to him, but obviously it has something to do with him being forced to do something, and therefore I think I started to be like, oh, this must be, that kind of makes me think of, child molestation. This was the part of the social worker that he was having to talk to, and she's like the first person in his life, I feel like, that really was pleading with him to please talk about what's happened to him, and he just would not. But I really liked those moments. She was not wrong. The longer you wait, the harder and harder it is to actually talk about what happened to you. You'll find your own way to discuss what happened to you. You'll have to, if you ever want to be close to anyone, but your life, no matter what you think, you have nothing to be ashamed of. And none of it has been your fault. And this reverberates through his life. Oh, that's right. I bracketed this because it was just a lot. And there's a lot of moments in here. You do get some discussion on legal matters, which I personally really like. Oh, this is where he's talking about contracts. I thought this was so interesting. I took contract law in school as well. Contracts govern every realm of law. When we choose to live in a society, we choose to live under a contract and to abide by the rules that a contract dictates for us. Constitution itself is a contract, which, I never really thought about it that way, and I thought that was really interesting. Here's where I was using mostly pen. Yes. Ultimate humiliation. Me just kind of reacting to that, where just like, wow, that's really messed up. I haven't done a whole lot of writing in the margins in this, just a couple things. Oh, here. So it became pretty obvious that this dude Caleb was using him. Understatement. This guy Caleb makes me so mad. Oh, this was I guess I think I saw this coming. I assumed that this was coming, this Caleb. And the whole Caleb chapter is really bad. Oh, fears of dating. So we go on as many people weigh in on his life and dating. People who don't really know him very well. Oh, this was one really sweet thing. Thrilled to have been claimed as another's in public. To finally be a member of a tribe of sons and daughters. And I just put a note in here that I completely relate. I love when my oldest brother, is like, now that's my little sister, and there's just something so sweet about it. Regarding his relationship with Willem, because Willem is going to leave for a little while for a job, and I also have a lot to write about that. This page obviously got a lot of response from me as well. There are certain things I really am gonna have to think about it for a while, but there's this part where it's like, okay, he just now decides to date someone as soon as Willem's away, and then he also doesn't have that protection of Willem, so things get really out of control. Okay, I'm at this part where I just had to stop. I'm not crying, but I'm almost so mad I could cry. I'm so disgusted and mad. What is it? 453. I'm on page 453 if you want to know what I'm talking about, because I'm trying to be vague enough to where if you've read it, you know. If you haven't read it, it's not a spoiler. It's the hotel room, and Jude is trying to rationalize whether or not he loves brother Luke. And it's just, I finally think I understand how the manipulation and like the twisted mind game, how that works, because he is a child. He is, I think, 9 years old. He just had his 9th birthday. And so in his child's mind, the person is not doing the things to him. He does not put the blame on him. And what a mind fuck. And so he's sitting there thinking like, I don't know. I'm unsure. What I'm doing is wrong. And I thought I loved this person. He takes care of me. All the things that insinuate to a child love is caring for someone, making sure that they can have a nice bed, making sure that they can have a meal. All of those caring things this person does for him, and he doesn't connect the fact that despite all of that, all the bad things happening to him are also his fault. What a mind fuck. That's all I gotta say. All right, I'm to page 472. Yeah. I'm to page 472, and it's really weird the things that start making me weepy and sad, and I'm getting like my first little bits of tears, not like, you know, sobbing, crying, but the parts that like make me sad are not the horrors. It's not like the shocking, terrible things that have happened. And it seems kind of weird the things that it seems kind of weird the things that are making me sad. And it's not, I think it's more like sad in a happy way, kind of. It's probably like one of the sweetest things that could happen in here, but it's the part where Willem tells Jude what he really wants for his birthday and how he's going to help him find the words. And it's just like the extreme, like I'm over here feeling so frustrated, and you can imagine how much more frustrating this is for Willem, and he is just putting so much effort into like wanting to be there for him, that he's like understanding that this concept is so overwhelming to Jude, but he's gonna help him work through it. And like, I don't know, like that's the part that's really like getting to me more so than a lot of the other things is. Anyways, okay, I'm gonna keep going. Page 474, at the very bottom, when he begs Luke to let him stop, it just stirred a visceral anger in me that makes me so, so mad. I don't think I have ever been so mad at something in a book before that just makes me disgusted and makes me nauseous. And I feel like that is a feeling that I've been getting a lot more of than just being sad. I just feel constantly disgusted by what's happening. So, okay, I'm not going to show my face this morning because, yeah, I'm not feeling super hot. But guess what? I am on page 740 and 16. So that is less than 100 pages to go. We are going to finish this bad boy today, this morning, before I get out of bed. Okay, 17 pages left. I have to give it to, so the previous like 200 to 300 pages has been like on again, off again, boredom, except for this last couple of pages here where he manages to hit a breakthrough. It's so good, actually. It makes that whole like boring part kind of worth it. Oh, I gotta sit with it for a minute because I do want to explain that part. But this is supposed to be the hardest part. I'm gonna go grab a cup of coffee though, and before I finish this. I have a little kitty friend here. We have Sora here. I have to hold him or he will be playing with the camera. Anyways, I'm not looking my best today. As you may notice, I have a couple of scratches. So I scared my cat, and not this one, my other one. I scared my cat and she gets kind of spooked easily, and she twisted around and just, it was a complete and utter accident. I know she feels bad and I feel bad, but yeah, I'm trying to make sure it doesn't get infected, so it's not gonna have makeup. Make sure it heals right and it doesn't scar, because that would suck. But anyways, I have finally finished this book. It has been a journey. I looked up my last, I started this back in March. It is now August, so that gives you an idea. To be fair, I had taken quite a long break because of personal stuff, and yeah, I had taken quite a long break from just reading in general. And then when I was trying to get back into reading, this wasn't really doing it for me. This has been something else. Did I cry? It was supposed to be guaranteed tearjerker, and there were a few moments I did get some tears. I did feel sad, but it wasn't the like ugly cry episodes that I anticipated. Does that make me too cynical? I don't know. I kind of wonder if it wasn't because I already knew where the story was going. So, like, mentally, emotionally, I was already prepared for everything that was happening. I do watch a lot of true crime as of the last couple of years, and some of the ones are like the House of Horrors, which are truly horrific acts against children. You want to go? Go. You don't need to stand right there. You want out? No, you don't want out. I swear to goodness. I was trying to close it because the fan in the other room is loud. I guess the ending was not surprising in any way. It was it felt inevitable. I guess this is probably a good point to just go ahead and say that I'm going to read a couple of excerpts I wanted to pick out from the book. So this might come into a spoilery section. I don't necessarily want to go through the entire book. I just have a couple towards the end because that is really the most critical, how it ties up the story. I feel like I have some opinions about Jude. I really do not like this shirt on me. It's making me feel uncomfortable, but whatever. It is what it is. Anyways, a part where, I don't know if I mentioned this, there are some parts in this book I just felt like it almost went too far, that it kind of cut into the credibility of the reality of the story, and it didn't almost feel like the author really trying to drive this point home in very dramatic ways. Let's just see what else we can do to Jude. And in that way, I completely understand where people are coming from, the whole like, well, this is just trauma porn, where it seems like it's not even real. Unfortunately, I know that these things can be real for people. One thing I think as an overall appreciation for this book, because I think people either really love it or they really hate it. But if you kind of fall in the middle, where if you kind of step outside of the story and maybe look maybe at the purpose of the story, I think that this, maybe it's overly dramatic. Maybe we can't really fully get on with this book. People who have got children who have experienced trauma in this way, it gives a picture of what their adult life could look like. That definitely gets missed a lot. I think that, for example, if you look at there's so many stories of all the people who maybe have been trafficked or been pulled out of those House of Horrors situations. It matters the most when they're children and they're saved. We don't really get a picture of what their adult life looked like. And of course, everybody's story is different. Some people will self-harm, some people will have suicidal ideologies or commit suicide or attempt to commit suicide. Some people will have eating disorders, some people will have intimacy problems. And unfortunately for Jude, he has everything from the book. He is textbook. Every single struggle that childhood trauma can cause for people, he's got every single one of them. I know I'm going to think of something else when I'm done recording, but it is what it is. I'm happy to finally be able to finish up this vlog. Okay, I was sitting here editing the final touches on the video and I remembered something that I wanted to put out there. I did say that I wondered if the author wasn't like trying to drive home this point. So you have all the mental problems that he's suffering through, but he also has the physical problems like his back and his legs, which it really takes him a long time to kind of get out what those ailments are. He ended up with them, but then on top of it, they say on several occasions that he has all these diseases. Obviously, we can allude to how he got them. They never say which ones. I mean, call me crazy, but I kind of feel like when they put it out there like that and just kind of throw it in there, that's why I feel like they're stacking just everything that could possibly happen to him, and they didn't really give that the attention. Because here's the thing, if he's got all these diseases, well, what are they? Because they all are going to have different symptoms, and they go into great length and detail of all these other symptoms he's experiencing from his legs and his back issues, but they don't, and even the graphic detail of the self-harm, but they don't really go into any other details that allude that he has any like STDs. So it kind of makes me think that they're fictitious. And also, like, a lot of those things can be cured and treated. What is there? They're like all the diseases, like the grocery list, like the full-on grocery list. You got AIDS, syphilis, gonorrhea, chlamydia, like what exactly are we talking about here? They don't say any of that. And so that really kind of irritated me. So like, if you aren't going to explain it when you spend the time to explain everything else, then why even put it in there? Because if you have any of those things, you're going to have other symptoms. Let me go ahead and go back to a couple of the most impactful things towards this last reading session. That's what I would like to touch base on. So obviously these are spoilers. So from this point on, if you do not wish to be spoiled, you can turn off this video. Okay, so let's get into it. Page 792, we are in the chapter of Dear Comrade. And this is the part where Jude really kind of, I believe, hits that, well, it's hard to tell what his rock bottom is. He kind of always lives at rock bottom from our perspectives, but for the past months, he's always had issues with like eating when he's stressed out, but this has been like the worst episode of him not eating, and so he loses a ridiculous amount of weight to the point where they are going to have to intravenously give him food. And so after hospitalization, all of his friends and family are going to be watching him and making sure that he eats. So he is here at the table with Harold and Julia, and they're like forcing him to eat, and he's not allowed to get up from the table. Yes, he is I think he's 52 at this point, 50 to 53 at this point, and he is being treated like a child, being disciplined to eat his food. And he has a breakthrough at this moment, and I feel like it is so interesting and pivotal because a lot of looking at mental health is kind of looking at what was broken in their childhood to reach this point. And he says he cries for the shame and joy of finally getting to be a child, with all of a child's whims and wants and insecurities, for the privilege of behaving badly and being forgiven. And it goes on, but that is like I mean, ever since he was little, he was put into these adult situations. He wasn't mentally mature enough to handle. He was helpless. He could not say no. He never got to be a child. He never got to be loved. He was punished for every wrongdoing he ever did, and punished in a way that was so out of proportion for what the action was. I mean, sometimes he was punished for not even doing anything wrong, just being a kid. And there was earlier in this segment, in this chapter, it's really hard to even call them chapters. He broke a dish and he was like so like groveling with apology, and Harold's like, dude, like, it's okay. And he didn't know what to do. They felt it was very hard to get through to him that it's a dish, like, we don't care, it's fine, it happens, it's a normal accident, happens to all of us. And he was acting like he was, you know, gonna be beat for it or whatever. So yeah, it's really interesting, I guess, from a psychological perspective as well. Then next it says, it ends with Julia finally going to the kitchen and making another sandwich. It ends with him eating it, truly hungry for the first time in months. And so that is that transition to like, okay, he broke and now he's going to be starting on the upswing of getting better. Look, he's accepting. He's 51. Oh, that's right, he's 51. He's old, but maybe he still has time. Maybe he can still be repaired. He is still thinking this on Monday when he goes to see Dr. Lohman, to whom he apologizes for his awful behavior the week before and the weeks before that as well. So we end this chapter with all this hopefulness, like maybe finally he will be on the upswing, you know, start taking care of himself, and he's going to see a therapist to work through those childhood traumas. The next chapter and the last chapter of the book is all from Harold's perspective, and he is telling kind of a recap of everything, of what's happened since he has died. He's almost like telling it in like a letter to Jude. There's more of a philosophical message that I found really interesting in this portion. So Harold, as you know, had a child, Caleb, who he lost, and so he's kind of taken Jude under his wing, and it's like his second chance at trying to be a father. I couldn't stop thinking this, that life tethered life. And yet at some point in his life after Caleb, if I had to date it, I had the sense that he was in a hot air balloon, one that was staked to the earth with a long twisted rope. But each year the balloon strained and strained against the cords, tugging itself away, trying to drift into the skies. And down below there was a knot of us trying to pull the balloon back to the ground, back to safety. And I felt that that was such a interesting analogy for the situation and their relationship with Jude. So I highlighted that because I thought it was really interesting. I thought often of what I was trying to do, of how hard it is to keep alive someone who doesn't want to stay alive. First, you try logic, and then it goes on listing all the ways in which you try to get through to someone who is struggling with that suicidal ideology, or I guess in Jude's case, it's not necessarily ideology like he is attempting. I think I forget, there's different tiers. I know the ideology is not necessarily considered serious, but they do have to you have to look into it. Jude is beyond that. Anyways, it is necessary that you, the cajoler, move into the realm of self-deception, because you can see that it is coasting them. You can see how much they don't want to be here. You can see that the mere act of existing is depleting for them. And then you have to tell yourself every day, wow, sorry, I'm getting choked up. It's different saying it out loud. And then you have to tell yourself every day, I am doing the right thing. To let him do what he wants to do is abhorrent to the laws of nature and to the laws of love. And my note was said that, wow, I did not see that coming. So that really gets you starting to think in a completely different term about someone who suffers as Jude suffers, I think. I mean, I think it definitely starts opening up that philosophical question, which we follow up on the next page, 804. He's talking about this course that he created, The Philosophy of Law and the Law of Philosophy, where they talk about the moral underpinnings of the legal system. Is that correct? Underpinnings? Pinnings. Usually I'm a lot better at words. Anyways, the moral underpinnings of the legal system and how they sometimes contradict our national sense of morality. And immediately what came to mind is maybe what they're actually speaking on is the right to die. The idea or the philosophy of the fact that it's illegal to do like an assisted death for terminally ill patients. All right, my phone ran out of memory, so we got interrupted last where I left off. So we were talking about the philosophical question about the morality of allowing people to suffer and the laws that prevent like the right to die or people's choice to have like an assisted suicide. I guess I'm curious where people fall in line with that perspective. I personally feel that it should be okay to choose that for yourself. You know, if they're worried that that would get abused, I guess with anything it can get abused, this question. And I do feel like people get very, I don't want to say selfish, that's not fair. I think there's a lot of emotions that go into, you know, a loved one wanting to end their life, obviously, and we want to change their mind and we want to make that choice because it would hurt us ultimately. And we feel like, you know, we get frustrated. Why can't they see that their life means so much? Because they mean that much to us and everything. In situations like Jude, who is just suffering every single day, would it not be better to not put, is it okay to allow people to suffer either though? I always compare humans and animals. Humans are animals. And this is the way I think about it. And I guess if people can't agree with me or if this makes someone angry, then I don't know. It's just the way that I think. But I feel that humans ultimately are animals. I feel like we do kind of lose sight of that. We do kind of have a moral compass sometimes that doesn't always line up with nature, I guess. So as humans, when we see an animal suffering, we don't want to see that animal suffer if it can't be helped. Like, I would much rather put that animal out of its misery than allow it to suffer. And oddly enough, my son had to go through this just the other day. He was home and the cat caught a hummingbird and like was torturing it and broke its wing, and it was terrified and squealing. And so he tried to make the executive decision and put the poor thing out of its misery. And therefore, why, and that's humane, that's considered humane to help an animal stop suffering. So why is it, wouldn't that stand to reason that to allow humans to suffer is inhumane? So yeah, just saying, that's, I wholeheartedly believe in that concept. And I guess that's where I'm going to leave this video off at. We have extensively covered this book. This video is upwards of an hour. Book, an in-depth look at an 800-page book, being the journey that it is. an hour is proportionate to the type of book we're discussing. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed this vlog.